Lots of fun and shenanigans from Radio Row, but we got a game to play, and there's somebody that has a big chip on their shoulder, and his name is Saquon. We'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open, and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
You got that right. It's your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen, and we can be found wherever you listen to or watch your podcast. Make sure you check in every single day so you do not miss an episode. And this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NFL, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Shout out to the everydayers for joining us here in the barbershop. We appreciate it. If it's your first time, hang out, chill out, wait in line, man. It ain't your chance to get a haircut yet, but you sit there, you'll enjoy yourself. As I am joined by my normal Tuesday host, my brother, Kevin Ostriker of Locked On Ravens. You can be found at KOstriker34. Good luck spelling Ostriker without looking at the screen because I still screwed that up. Here's what me and Kevin going to talk about today. Miles' impact on Radio Row. I'm not talking about Miles. I'm talking about Myles, and that would be Miles Garrett. Even talking about him at the Super Bowl. KC's strategy is not to fill everybody's belly with barbecue and put them to sleep. But I'm going to tell you what it is, man. The Locked On Chiefs guys have a strategy that, let's just say it's going to be a little bit of a spirited conversation. And I think their strategy is leading me, if everybody's feeling this way, it's leading me to thinking that the Eagles are going to pull an upset. We'll discuss that. At the top of the show right now, what we're not going to do is bury the lead anymore. We're going to talk about Saquon's sensational journey. Big time player. Went to New York. The failures of that organization, KO, ended up making everyone say, well, you don't need a $12 million running back. You need everything else. And it doesn't mean I always get upset when people do that because it's like he's a football player before he is a running back. That just happens to be the position that he plays. You never let good players just leave for nothing because you're trying to mask your own failures as an organization. I think that's crazy to even look at it that way.
I agree. And there have been so many conversations about the running back position in general and just like, why would you pay guys 30 years old? That's when they're washed. And I just think that's been such an overblown topic of conversation. It's almost like every team in the league thinks that they can just draft a 7th round running back or find someone in undrafted free agency, and they're going to be the next Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey or whoever you want to put in that conversation. It doesn't work that way. I get the position might have a little bit less of a runway in terms of longevity than maybe some others do, but when there's a talent like Saquon and you have a guy like Saquon on your team, you don't just let him walk and then make it seem like, oh, well, this was the right decision. And like, it was such a no brainer. Like, here we go. You can tell during the Hard Knocks clips for the Giants, the owner was like, man, I'm not going to be able to sleep if Saquon goes. So in the fact that it was a division rival, Philadelphia is getting so much out of Saquon right now. This is a generational talent, and the Eagles are rewarded in their faith in Saquon Barkley by a trip to the Super Bowl, largely on Saquon's back.
So here's what people don't really get about this. Because y'all got Derrick Henry, all right? And the folks will sit there all day and say, well, they didn't win. I mean, if we could all just guarantee winning by picking up, there's a lot more to it than that, right? There's a lot more nuance than that. But I tell you what, bad teams, when you let a guy go, it's not like a bad college team that loses a guy to the NFL draft. He literally transfers to another team that you might have to beat. And in this case, you're right. He went to a division rival. How about a former coach, Anthony Blevins, running backs coach from the Giants, former running backs coach from the Giants, talked to our homie Patricia Trania, and they actually talked about Saquon's impact with the Giants and with the Eagles. Check this out.
When you look at Saquon and his career with the Giants, and you had him for while you were a coach here for a few years, You see what he was able to do with the Giants and now what he's able to do with the Eagles. You feel, given where the Eagles are, given where the Giants are, did the Giants make a mistake in letting him walk out the door?
In my personal opinion, I would say yes, because he was a lot of the offense. So I think some of the offensive struggles that they're having now is because they don't have him. And that's just my honest opinion. And I love Saquon, so I might be a little bit biased. So I have to acknowledge that I am a little bit biased towards Saquon because he's a good human being. He's a good football player. He's a good teammate. He was good for the organization. But I was really hoping they would sign him to another deal. But I will say this, the success that he's having in Philly, I don't think he would have had 2,000 yards rushing in New York. Would he have had 1,000? Yeah. Probably 1,200? Yeah. But he would not have had 2,000 yards if he had stayed in New York. And 2,000 yards, he's got the 8th best rushing season in NFL history. That would not have happened in New York.
I think that's true, but I also think this is true. The fact that it wouldn't have happened in New York should not be used as a reason why you let him go. The fact that it wouldn't have happened in New York should be used as a reason to tell you why your team stinks and they should be better and be just like Philly and have weapons like Philly and have a line like Philly and have a plan like Philly so you extract the best out of the player.
That's exactly what it is, where I completely agree. No, it would not have happened in New York. No, the Giants do not have nearly as good of a roster as the Eagles do. But you want to know why the Giants don't have as good of a roster as the Eagles do? Because they let their talent walk out the door. Like that's exactly what it is. You cannot compete with the teams in the NFL, let alone even the teams in your division, if you let your best players walk. And it wasn't even Saquon. They let Xavier McKinney walk out the door. And they obviously, the whole Daniel Jones thing failed, and we can all admit, and we can say that. Daniel Jones kind of reeled him back in that 1 year, and I think that kind of honestly cost them 2 years of their franchise. I personally don't believe Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen should still be there, but they are. I think this is probably going to be their last season, because in reality, now the Giants are going to have to deal with a situation where if they draft a quarterback with their pick, let's just say they do, and Brian Daboll's not the man for that job, they move on from him after next season. And then all of a sudden that new coach comes in and says, wait a minute, I don't really like this guy. It's what has happened so many times in the past. That's why rookie quarterback, rookie coach combos tend to work out better sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, because they can pick the direction as opposed to someone coming in. And that direction would have been a lot better if you had a generational running back in Saquon there. They probably wouldn't have made the playoffs this season. The roster's just not as good, even if Saquon was there. But you take steps to build every single season. Like imagine Saquon and Malik Neighbors in this offense with a quarterback, with an offensive line. Like they took a step last year in adding Malik Neighbors. They probably should have taken a quarterback, but we can't have that conversation anymore because what's done is done. But if Saquon is there, it takes a lot of pressure off of you. You don't make your fan base mad, especially by the fact that he goes to Philadelphia, and now they have to live with that. It's going to always hold a sour taste in their mouth. So there's just so many different angles of the situation. All that leads back to Saquon should have never been able to walk out that door in New York.
You got that right. And now, it's just the thing about this that can be a little bit infuriating is there are a lot of players, Michael Parsons, other guys, and I ain't talking about just guys who just something you shake a stick at. I'm talking about all pros. They all think that Saquon Barkley is the best football player in the National Football League, and they let him go for nothing. The Giants are idiots. All right, so what we're going to do is move forward and get to the game, but I had to give an ode to Saquon Barkley because of his class, his perseverance. He ain't do a whole bunch of belly aching. He just did whatever, and look, he ended up right back in the same state where he played high school football, where he played college football. Well, I don't think he's played high school football, but you know what I mean. Close enough. And he's running this team to possibly a championship. There's some people in Kansas City that seem to acknowledge how great he is, but they may not think that he's what they have to stop. We'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Prize Picks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make Make it even more exciting than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports with over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded. Prize Picks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Prize Picks even has a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw 1 yard to win. Pair that with one more correct pick, and you're cashing out. All right, here's what you got to do. You figure Saquon Barkley is going to at least score 1 touchdown, or maybe Jalen Hurts will, right, on the tush push. There you go. That's how you start figuring out what you're going to do. Figure out how you think the game is going to go. Check out the promos to tail any of the super sweet Millie winners, big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Locked On NFL, LOCKEDON NFL, for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Pick. Run your game. The big game is here this weekend, and a lot of this comes down to people having the fatigue from the Kansas City Chiefs being so good. I think a lot of that is going on. But a lot of this also comes down to the confidence of their opponent. Buffalo, I think, was hoping and wishing. The game was close, but they went into it thinking, we got to get this monkey off our back. Usually Kansas City and Baltimore, they don't really care. They don't see their opponents like that. They just focus on themselves. And there's another team that does that, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. They play with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder because, well, that city always has a perpetual chip on their shoulder. And the odd thing is that now a whole bunch of fans that usually dislike the Bluebirds and the Eagles are rooting for them because they can't stand the Kansas City Chiefs. This comes down to strategy. And how do you think this game is going to go? Well, Locked On Chiefs says that their key to victory is something that, I didn't think they were going to say. Check this out.
Do you take one thing away? Is there one thing that you can stop that then changes their whole game plan? Or do you do the Belichick thing and you just kind of limit what their strength is and take everything else away? It's a philosophical game, but there's a lot that you can go after. So I guess that's where we start is what's job number 1 for you?
Stopping their passing game. And to me, everybody's going to say it should be stopping the running game because Saquon is Saquon and he's a fantastic running back. And I get that. I understand the perspective. I understand the thought process. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it because I don't think they win the game by running. Like, could they take over the game? Can they, completely keep the Chiefs off the field? Yeah. But Kansas City has a good enough offense and a fast enough offense to where they could take over offensively and not have that issue. Like, they have the ability to score quick if they absolutely have to. They've done it several times. The Eagles defense is good, but they have had the answer multiple times this year in those types of scenarios. So to me, if you take away the passing game, it's going to make them one-dimensional, and running isn't going to be something that they're going to be able to be as efficient at and score as many points. And I do think the Chiefs are going to be able to move the ball up and down the field.
Kevin Oestreicher, the floor is yours.
I want to play devil's advocate in terms of people who disagree with what Chris said. Now, first of all, I do think the number 1 key is stopping Saquon Barkley. But where I think Chris is coming from here, and actually it's funny because I had this conversation with Chris because Roquan Smith made comments, because I do cover the Ravens for Locked On Ravens, for those that don't know. He said that the number 1 priority for the Ravens in that Chiefs game is stopping the run game and Isaiah Pacheco. And everyone was in Kansas City was like, what are you talking about? Like, it's obviously Mahomes and it's Kelsey. The running game isn't important. The thing with this is making an offense one-dimensional. And so when you talk about Saquon Barkley, if Jalen Hurts isn't on, if A.J. Brown isn't getting fed, if Devontae Smith can't make an impact, right? If the Chiefs can stifle that passing game, it's going to make it a lot easier to stop Saquon Barkley because there's not going to be as big of a threat in the passing game. Now, I think it's a little bit reversed, run game versus pass game, because if you stop the run, it makes the play action have so much less impact. Because if you're holding an opponent to 2 yards a carry, 1 yard a carry, and they run a play action, you're gonna look at them and be like, yeah, we're right. You're not running the ball. We're stopping that all day. You obviously are throwing the football. But if you stop the pass, the Eagles are either going to have to make a decision of, okay, we really have to run it with Saquon. Like, we have to establish something that way to free stuff up. But then it's not like the Eagles passing game has nobody on it. So if you're able to stop Jalen Hurts, stop A.J. Brown, stop Devonta Smith, it makes sense. But if Saquon Barkley runs for 180 and 3 touchdowns on it, you're probably not in a good spot, especially considering the Chiefs' run defense has not been particularly impressive this season. So if the Eagles can take advantage of that weakness, it might be a long day. And plus, we know that the Kansas City strength does lie in that secondary anyway.
All right. So you just said something at the end of this that is going to explain my point. I disagree with both of y'all. But since their strength is the secondary, they don't have to do a whole bunch of extra stuff to help their secondary. So while them stopping the pass is the key, stopping the pass is the key to them stopping the run with their base personnel. So here's what I think happens. It's not about stopping the pass or stopping the run. It's about stopping Saquon Barkley. Because if I'll counter this, if you spend extra resources and do everything you can to stop the pass, you do make them one-dimensional. But that one dimension is a hell of a dimension, because now that means I get to not only run the ball with Saquon Barkley, I get to throw it to him. So if you're playing a bunch of coverage and you're not touching him until I throw him the ball and he's 4 yards down the field, I'm still winning. Pull that strategy on me if you want to, and Saquon Barkley is going to have 12 catches for 102 yards, and he's going to beat you that way. So my point is, it's not about run or pass. It's about stopping Saquon. The best way to stop Saquon is to make the Eagles one-dimensional. And hopefully, if you're able to do that naturally without changing your alignment, without changing what you do, remember, you got here doing what you do, being who you are, right? So, if Jalen Hurts has the kind of game he has against Washington, it's going to be a very, very long day. Like Lamar Jackson when he got hot against the Bills. Then Derrick Henry got hot, right? But the Bills' goal was to stop the run. What happened is, by making them pass, meaning the Ravens, they created 2 miscues. That's how you get miscues, with the ball being in the air. That's how you get sacks. That's how you get holding penalties. You very rarely get a whole bunch of holding penalties on running plays. You get a bunch of them on pass downs and pass situations. So for me, I would rather say I want the Eagles to drop back and throw it 35 times than Saquon Barkley have 35 touches. That's just my opinion.
And to your point, I think one of the things you said is in terms of like spending extra resources. I agree. Like if you play light boxes against Philadelphia,
you're done. They're too big.
You cannot prioritize stopping the pass in terms of we're going to play super light packages. We're going to put 6 guys in the box. You cannot do that. My point was more in terms of like execution wise. You are definitely going to want to put guys in the box. And the thing that you said, which is 100% true, is Saquon is such a threat as a receiver. We've been talking about that. You mentioned it. He's not just the running back. He can do so many things on the field. And so the short passing game is an extension of the run game, where if the Eagles decide that they want to stack the box up and maybe blitz a little bit, or the Chiefs, want to do that and go blitz Jalen Hurts will say, all right, Saquon, go in the flat. You have 7 guys coming at Jalen Hurts. Well, let's get blockers out in front, throw that ball to Saquon Barkley, and all of a sudden that's game over, as we've seen him do multiple times. So yes, they should not be loading anything up in the back end. They should be loading up in the box. But if you cannot stop the passing game for the Eagles,
you're done.
You have the Saquon Barkley effect. You're not going to know where to put your resources. You're going to get out of sorts. Now, to the Chiefs' credit, they've been very good at staying calm, cool, and collected. They've been here before, but so have the Eagles now. And that's why I'm super excited to see how it plays out.
I am too. And I'm starting to favor the Eagles because I keep hearing about all of this togetherness. Listen to Lou from Locked On Eagles. Louis was talking about the Eagles and how they're feeling right now. And then I'll come back and tell you something else I disagree with from Chris Clark.
The Eagles part of Media Day, pretty much wrapping up here. Got to talk to Lane Johnson, Devontae Smith. I would say a consistent theme about a lot of the comments from these players about what makes this team so special really is the togetherness in the locker room. It's the adversity they've overcome, how that's over the last 2 years and this year, specifically how it's really helped them grow closer together, the work ethic, the communication. It's a special team. I've said it before on the podcast. They have the talent of 2022, but they have the adversity experience and the togetherness of 2017 that I think is really special and could be the difference between winning a close Super Bowl and losing a close Super Bowl. I mean, hearing Lane Johnson and Devontae Smith talk about it, Nick Sirianni, I think that's truly what makes this Eagles team great. And it's not quantifiable in numbers, but sometimes that's what makes a team great.
They just feel like a team of destiny to me at this point. They just feel like they're not they're not the ones that's going to come in here and talk about the referees. They're not the ones that's going to come in here and worry about all of that stuff. That togetherness combined with, I believe, most of the Chiefs fans feel sort of like Chris Clark. And I'm not saying that Chris feels this way, but this is what I feel like I keep hearing from the Chiefs is, oh, we know what we're doing. We're just here. You know, they figure it out. Something that he said that I disagree with. This year, the Chiefs have not been able to score quickly. They just haven't. They're not this explosive offensive team. In fact, a lot of their drives are 10, 12, 13 plays long, and they do it with a bunch of misdirection. The one thing the Eagles do well is they tackle in space, man. They are very, very similar to Kansas City. So that's why I'm thinking people need to be careful a little bit now when they think this thing's going to be kind of easy. All right, we got some stuff coming up from Radio Row. You're going to hear from Louis again, and you're going to hear from my man, Peter Bukowski. Yep, we're going to hear from Peter Bukowski. This is all about Miles Jack. The Miles Jack trade scenarios did not escape Radio Row. We'll talk about that. Y'all going to have fun with it, too, in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you in part by Game Time. Looking for tickets for the next big event? Maybe last-minute tickets to the big game this weekend? Well, if it's not that, but it's a concert, a comedy show, or a sports game, find the right ticket at the right price. It can always be a headache when you're trying to do that. But with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket sales. I have used Game Time, and I am so happy with it. I would not be telling y'all about it to this extent if I was not. You can get tickets to just about anything you want. I take the just about out of any and everything you want. They're selling tickets. Game Time has it. Ready to make your next event even better? If that's the case, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Man, what time is it? You know it's game time. It is absolutely. It is absolutely time to keep going here with my man Kevin Ostracker here. Locked On Ravens, Locked On Squad shows. Just an all-around good dude, man. Covers the Baltimore Ravens. I wish I had a consistent winner, but we're coming to Jacksonville. Don't worry about us, baby. We're going to be there. The Miles Garrett news hit Radio Row, and I got Peter Bukowski. He had Aaron Nagler. They even talked about it, and it made a lot of sense. And then Louis not so busy that he's with the Eagles down there that he didn't even talk about it because Philly is also going to probably be in need of a pass rusher with Josh Sweat being a free agent and Brandon Graham retiring. Could they actually improve and get better in the offseason? Could that be something on their mind? Can you imagine a team winning a Super Bowl and adding Miles Garrett? I want you to listen here to Peter Bukowski.
If Matt LaFleur and the Packers continue to have success, careful.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Continue to have success.
Hey, look, that wasn't the video we were supposed to play of Peter Bukowski. I got another video, Kevin. If y'all think that's an accident that I put it in there, y'all crazy. But listen to Peter Bukowski. I don't know why people hate Peter so much, man. He's like the nicest guy I know, but I had to go ahead and mess with him with that. He got tongue-tied like we all do. Here's Peter with Aaron Nagler talking about Miles Garrett.
We're here, Super Bowl 59, New Orleans, Radio Row, and look who I ran into. Hey, what's up? Aaron Nagler from Cheesehead TV. We're actually in front of Lambeau Field. I don't know if you guys can see that, behind us. And while we were waiting to get set up here, the Packers traded for Miles Garrett. Did you know that?
That's what I heard. I mean, that seems to be a rumbling that a few people have talked about today.
when you saw the news that Miles Garrett wanted out,
right?
You did the thing that you do.
Maybe.
Okay.
Right.
Why? So why maybe?
Because it's something where I think they'll explore it. And always when I put the yes, no, maybe out there, it's always about what the Packers are thinking, how Brian Gutekunst operates. I think they'll make a call. Why wouldn't they?
Right.
I mean, a player of that stature does not come around every blue moon, and they know what they're doing as far as if there's a supremely talented, game-changing player available, they got to be in that conversation. At least get their kind of toe in the water and say, okay, what are you thinking?
Well, and for Brian Gutekunst to be in every conversation, which is
that's what he wants to be, so that's how he's going to roll.
At what point did you think back to early 90s, Ron Wolf, hey God, this is...
Yeah, right.
Heard that a lot Reggie, today. This is God.
I heard that a lot today. And I don't know if Matt LaFleur's got that in him, but that would be amazing. I mean, look, nothing is Reggie White. Let's just get that out of the way.
Right.
However, it would be a transformational move as far as what they're doing on the defensive side of the ball. There's zero doubt that everything we watched last season as far as the inability to get home with 4 guys, that's out the window now. Now everyone else is feasting because there's all the attention being paid on Miles Garrett.
Hey, man, Miles is a great player. By the way, that was an accident, right? Old striker for me.
Yeah, man, that was no accident. Come on, you can't fool me with that. You can't fool me.
Yeah, man, but they make a good point. Everybody is 31 teams are going to make a phone call about Miles Garrett. I think only 8 or 9 realistically have a chance to get him if Cleveland is going to acquiesce his desire to play for a contender. My question to you is, what the Ravens cap situation look like, and have you thought about Miles Garrett? I don't know if they'll trade him in the division, but have you thought about it?
Yeah, it's definitely a conversation. I talked about it for Tuesday's edition of Locked On Ravens because it's the biggest story not named the Super Bowl in sports right now, or at least in the NFL right now. I think that it's interesting because when you talk about a team like the Eagles, I know a lot of people have maybe mentioned the Commanders, like those teams with, decent cap space or a team that needs an edge rusher. It's just going to be a different type of package that the Browns are going to want from those teams as opposed to a team in the division, Ravens, Bengals, Steelers. Like I would be floored if the Browns decided to trade Miles Garrett in the division. Now, the Ravens do need a game-wrecking edge, and it was funny. I talked about it for Monday. I'm like, oh, Miles Garrett, like, that'd be fun. And then, 12 hours later, he requests out of Cleveland. But you're right. Every team should be in on Miles Garrett. The thing, though, is that every team is not going to be the situation that Miles Garrett wants. Clearly, he wants out of Cleveland because he wants to win a Super Bowl. So I know there's been a lot of talk about maybe Las Vegas. So go pair him up with Max Crosby. Man, I don't care if you have 5 Hall of Fame edges. They're not winning the Super Bowl until they get their quarterback position figured out. So the Eagles are an interesting spot because there is a bunch of conversation about, okay, they lost Hassan Reddick, but they're in the Super Bowl. It doesn't really matter if they lost him. You're right. If they win the Super Bowl and they had Miles Garrett, they're probably the favorites in every way, shape, and form. So Baltimore I would love it. Everybody here in Baltimore would love it. But I kind of understand the reality of if the Browns were to trade a player of that caliber in the division, it would send an even further rift down that fan base. And we might honestly be getting into a Luka to the Lakers territory if you want to bring the NBA into it because it's that crazy.
I'm waiting for somebody to get creative, and I don't know who that somebody's going to be, and they might not. I don't know how much money Deshaun Watson has left, but what if somebody says, send us Miles Garrett and send us Deshaun Watson because we got the cap space. We'll eat it. Just send it. They won't say no, will they?
I don't think so.
We'll take Watson in his contract. He ain't gonna never play here. We'll sit him out. I don't know if they have NBA type buyouts, but we'll take that off your books. But you gotta send him with you. I'm just waiting for somebody to get that creative and do that, and then whoever that is, they figure out what they need to do. From the NFL is buck wild. Well, from what I saw in the NBA this weekend, I don't put nothing past anybody. Let's listen to Louis DiBiase talk about the chance that one of the Super Bowl teams, the Philadelphia Eagles, has of getting Miles Garrett.
All right, I made it to Radio Row, and this has nothing to do with the Eagles' Super Bowl matchup against Kansas City, but I just saw that Miles Garrett requested a trade from Cleveland, and I've already been thinking about the offseason, like what's Howie's next big move, zig when the rest of the league zags. Last year was Saquon Barkley. A few years ago, it's trading for A.J. Brown. You have the young defense in place with a bunch of rookie contracts. Josh Sweat's a free agent. Brandon Graham is probably going to retire. It's a really good edge class. But you got the draft picks to do it. Maybe you go back into that well of trading future assets for a star now. I'm in on it. I think they should make the splash move in the offseason. Too bad you don't have him for this game. They could really use Miles Garrett against Patrick Mahomes. This pass rush needs to be a lot better than it was in Super Bowl 57. Luckily, they're not playing on an ice rink of a field like they were in Arizona. So expecting big things from Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith. Jalen Hunt had a great NFC championship. But for next year, maybe call up Cleveland.
Hey, look, man, I can't even imagine Miles Garrett and Jalen Carter on the same line. Not to mention Miles Garrett on the same line with Jalen Carter, who's still on a rookie deal. That would be ridiculous.
And that's when you have to do it. You know, I know a lot of people talk about, and again, rookie quarterback contract, a little different than, you know, rookie defensive tackle contract, but still, we know Jalen Carter's getting that bag when he's eligible for it. So if you want to bring in Miles Garrett and
front load it now so that when the other kid comes up, Garrett's salary goes down, and now you can pay the other kid all the money.
It's almost a situation where you bring in a guy like that and you figure out the rest later. You don't really care what happens with that. So whether it's Philly, Washington, you know, a bunch of different teams going to be in the running for this. Obviously, Cleveland has no desire to trade him, but, you know, or do they want a holdout situation? Is Garrett willing to take it that far? Because it's been made very clear this is not a contract thing. Usually when players request trades, look, I went through with Lamar a couple of years ago. Lamar requested a trade on social media, and that was for his contract. This is not a contract thing. Miles wants to win, and he understands that he's not going to get it done in Cleveland, so he wants to go to a place where he can. And if anything, at the end of his contract, he's gone anyway. So you might as well get something for him, because this could result in a pretty generational haul if you're Cleveland, as opposed to losing him for a third-round comp pick a couple years down the line.
And to show you that Aaron Nagler was not wrong in not comparing this to Reggie White, I don't want the young people to get mad at me and call me an old head and say you're just taking up for your people. No, I'm not. I want you to hear this. He has 102 sacks, Miles Garrett, in his 20s. Reggie White had 108. They didn't throw the ball back then the way they do now, right? And the other thing is sometimes Reggie did that from a three-man front in the 46 defense, where he literally was like J.J. Watt, where he played defensive end, like five technique in a three-man front. And get this, his first few years in his 20s, he spent them in the USFL. He wasn't even in the NFL. That just shows you how good he was. I think my second favorite defensive player, well, the second best defensive player all time behind the GOAT, Lawrence Taylor. I'm talking to a young GOAT in the making, and Kevin Ostracker. He'll be here every single Tuesday with me. Enjoy the big game, Ostracker. We'll have you back, of course, next Tuesday. Everybody else, make sure you tap into Locked On NFL AM for all the stories from Tyler Rowland from overnight that'll get you through the day, and then slide back right here through the barbershop where we can end it all for you every single day. Take care. We'll see you next time here on Locked On NFL.